Now, your tour, yes, in Sydney, you've had some troublemakers. I'm sure in Melbourne you will, because it's the it's the home of troublemakers. But it sold out your tour so quickly. I'm interested to know what the Australian people who are paying to hear you speak, what are they interested in talking about? What's top of mind for them?
I think it's several things. I mean, obviously, people are very interested about the wider world, about the region, about wars I've covered recently, including the Hamas war, the Ukraine war. But in my as far as I've seen it, we use a thing every night called Slido, so people can send in questions and then upvote the questions they really want you to answer, which is a great system.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that, there are very, very similar concerns to other countries I've been to recently, and also specific ones to do with Australia. Of course, you had the referendum last year, and the referendum and issues related to it seem to be a sort of bubbling under the surface thing in this country, it seems to me, because there is this, and I've said this a couple of times to audiences here, that the vision of Australians that I grew up with and you grew up with has changed slightly in our own lifetime. In fact, you might say changed quite a lot. And I see that kind of happy country, frank-speaking, clear-thinking sort of Australian tradition sort of being subdued, like it's chased out of people. Like people are made to feel guilty for things they haven't done.
Oh, yes.
They're made to feel like they're usurpers and colonizers and all this sort of thing. And it's so destructive, and you can see it, you can feel it, you can hear it. Everybody wants to get along, everyone wants to do well in the future, but, there's no way that this country or any other country can if you're mired in the guilt and this sort of dampening down of the majority, the sort of you can't say that, you can't think that. That's why I love referendums, actually. They're always an opportunity for the general public to kick our political class in the ghoulies.
And like Brexit, when it came to this referendum, the race-based referendum, it was a case where you had the entire elite, really, the celebrities, the activists, the corporates, all of them, sporting clubs, all on the side of the yes vote, which obviously the Australian government was backing. And then the no vote wins in every single state.
Yes.
And that tells you plenty, even in left-leaning states like here in Victoria. But I think we do have this unique problem in Australia, and I think it's particularly bad here, more so than the US and the UK, where there is this self-loathing. We can't even celebrate our national day, Australia Day, without being accused of supporting genocide and white supremacy, and it's an invasion and it's a harmful day. You don't even have that in the UK or the US, where UK, they still revere their traditions. US, there's a great deal of patriotism across much of the country. But I just wonder what the impact is on a country that seems determined to hate itself.
Yeah, the long-term impact, we don't yet know. We can guess. We don't yet know because, as far as I know, no civilization has tried this before. Yeah. Most people sort of want to exist, want to thrive, and most people are proud of what has gone well in their country. Every country's had things that they're not proud of.
Of course.
But the question isn't that, and isn't lingering all the time on that. The question is, what have we done well? You saw this in Don Lemon's interview with Elon Musk last week, where Elon Musk just said, if we keep talking about the slave trade in America, we're never going to get past it. And Don Lemon seems sort of thrown by that, as he is by any original thought. But he seemed genuinely thrown by that. But it's absolutely true. The question isn't whether or not you've acknowledged any mistakes in your past. The point is, are we able to get past them? And are we able to say anything good about ourselves? And if in Australia, the whole narrative is just, as you say, genocide yesterday, genocide today, genocide tomorrow, of course people aren't going to be brought up to be proud of their country. And of course they aren't going to see the good things. I would just beg the people who fall into that narrative, which includes a lot of young people who go along with the herd. A lot of young people don't, but a lot of young people do go along with that herd. I would beg them just to go somewhere else in the world, just for a week, and see the comparative rights that you have in any other country in this region and the rights you have here, the traditions in any other region, the traditions you have here, what's gone well in other parts of the region and what's gone well here. And, you know, to revive something I've said to you before in other contexts, there's a reason that the boats come to Australia and they do not leave from Australia to other places. There is a reason. And if the people who do this, there's nothing good about Australia, we're all genocidists and murderers and so on, which is absolutely preposterous. And nobody's guilty of things they didn't do. But if those people could just reflect for a moment, you know, why is it that if this country is as bad as these people and the corporations and all these pop stars and so on, if it's as bad as they say, why are people not fleeing Melbourne today? Why is this city booming? Why are people not fleeing here for the sanctuary of communist China? There must be something we've done well. There must be something you've done well in Australia. I think there's a lot you've done well.
The only place Victorians are fleeing is Queensland, to be much further than Dan. But this notion of we're on stolen land, that seems to be
preposterous.
A grievance, and you know, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. You've flown around the country. I'm sure you've heard as soon as a plane lands, this acknowledgement of country. Yes. There's almost this notion that we are on interlopers on someone else's land, and we're not as entitled to feel that it's as much ours as it is theirs.
Which means you have a population where the majority feels less than. Now, I mean, that if you had a minority population, say 3% of the population, that was repeatedly made to feel less than the rest, I think we would say, look, that's ridiculous. That 3% of the population should be encouraged, should be made to feel welcome, should be made to feel at home. We don't hold them back, anything else. It would be madness to hold back 3% of your population. When you're dealing with the majority of your population being made to feel less than, I mean, as I say, that's an experiment no one has really tried before.
No.
People have tried to oppress minorities, but trying to oppress and beleaguer and demoralize the majority in a country, I mean, that's lunacy.